I'd like to tell you about a practice that I call the spiral blend. It's a central practice in my work called somatic consensus. It begins with a basic movement distilled from Aikido called Irami Tenkan, which means enter and turn. So this is a physical practice to add to the emotional and linguistic practices of nonviolent communication. It's the basic process for staying present, listening with your whole self, connecting, and leading it to a place that's good for everybody. As you go through these practices, remember that most of what you communicate, you learned initially through body and gesture, pre-verbally. Also, there are many habits that we have that we practice over a lifetime that become embodied and embedded. So it makes sense to bring the body more fully into relearning new habits and understandings. So try the practices here. Enjoy the movements. See how they inform you and new ways of being. To explore the spiral blend, we're going to slow things way down. But keep in mind these basic components. We begin by talking directly in front of each other and feeling the response underneath the words, noticing the core contractions within us, and then moving to wind to calm our systems. We relax our system, listening with self-empathy, and then move to ground, the ground that we stand on, what it is that we care about, our deeper needs. Once we've centered and resourced ourselves, we can better listen to our partners. So we step behind them, our hearts behind theirs, and listen to the needs of our partner. Once we connect empathically, we begin the conversation, and through honesty and empathy, we listen to one another's needs and develop strategies that are mutually beneficial. Here's a couple who volunteered to work through the process, and I asked them to come up with something that was mildly triggering for them. This process can work in very amped up situations. For the sake of learning, we're going to start small. So this couple had a conflict they want to work on, and on a scale of 1 to 10, I asked them to make it a 1 or 2. And what you'll find is most of the conflicts that we have, especially with the people that we love the most, those 1 or 2 connect to the 9 and 10s. So we begin with one person in front of the other, a place where we can really meet. Before you begin, decide who will be the challenger and who will be the receiver. Remember, we're slowing things way down, so it's not going back and forth so much that it gets confusing. To help, the challenger can point his or her finger or extend their hands in the direction of the receiver. And this will help exaggerate and amplify the situation enough so that the receiver can really feel what is going on inside him or her. As a challenger's words land on the receiver, he is saying something like,
I'm going to be leaving for California on March 1st. 100% sure.
And because he's saying that with such a surety, it triggers their patterns. She set this up. She said this is what triggers her. I asked her if she was noticing any tightness or any responses in her body.
For me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So this is a nice practice one, okay? How did you know that? Where in your body did you feel any kind of tensing? Say it again. Go ahead.
I'm definitely leaving for California on March 1st.
Like here.
Okay, good. Some people feel it here. Some people feel it here. Everybody's different. Often the heart and the belly are two very powerful places to feel what we're calling a core contraction. This core contraction, stimulated by the other person's words, puts you in touch with an old strategy, a core strategy, something that you put in place at some other time in your life and have practiced to the point where it becomes embedded and embodied. It's very difficult to address these contractions when you're in front of someone pointing at you and saying triggering things. So you have to become aware of what's too much for you. This is probably too much. So you step off that line a little bit. Imagine that going by. And over here, my system starts to relax a little more. One more time.
I'm leaving town on March 1st.
How does that feel in your body when you're standing over here?
It doesn't impact me.
She said it doesn't impact her as much. The more relaxed we are, the more aware we can be. If you are focusing on me and I move off to the side a little bit, it's a very different experience. I'm actually letting some of your intensity, some of your energy, some of your focus, some of your intention move to the side of me. Understanding your position and your proximity is an essential piece of effective communication to pay attention to. Be as gentle as you can in this moment with yourself and ask yourself, how old was I when I first learned to contract here? What is your first thought? Maybe something at birth, or when you were 2, or when you started school at 6, or preteen at 12, or 22, or some other time in your life, when you learned to protect your heart, or to keep your gut instincts hidden away for the sake of protecting that precious resource, or when you learned to quiet your words and contract around your throat in order to keep yourself safe, to hold back your words so you might have a sense of belonging and to be loved. So this is a time to hold that younger part of yourself. These younger parts of us still work tenaciously for the sake of belonging, connection, security, understanding, self-valuing. It's up to us now just to not judge that these strategies are good or bad right now, but appreciate that these younger parts of us were doing the best that they could, and even take a moment to know that your heart is still there. Your gut instincts have been protected. You are still safe and alive. So turn to that younger part of yourself, and with the lightest of touch, just appreciate. Say thank you in your own way. This self-acceptance leads to self-healing and a reintegration of those precious parts of us we've hidden away for good reason, and that in time can become our greatest gifts to the world. At this point in the spiral blend, we've moved to wind, to let the words of the other person go by, to not take what the other person has said personally, and to remember who we are. From the wind position, we touch our hearts, and then pat our bellies to wake up our gut instincts. Now shift to the ground position and ask yourself, what is it that I care about? What really matters to me? What is the ground that I stand on? That common ground that we all share, our deepest needs. This is where we find understanding and remember who we are. The ground she stands on is caring relationships as we listen to what's underneath her words. She cares about understanding. She cares about consideration. So these are the things that she comes back to as she loses herself in the relationship. And as she does that and remembers what matters to her, a shift happens inside of her.
Calmer, maybe?
Again, just to try to describe it kind of helps to settle it in, whatever that is. She says she feels calmer and she's centered and more relaxed. Then she's ready to step to shikaku. It's a movement in Aikido. It means optimum entering angle. And as you step, not straight in, not way around, but actually stepping just behind, so that you are stepping behind the other person and you are looking over their shoulder. Your heart's behind their heart. So don't touch him till there is actually a connection. Connection begins before the touch. Now you know what you care about, right? You don't have to think about that. You're listening for what his ground is. He speaks his statement of, I'm ready to go, I got everything packed, stating. In this moment, we're listening with a deep caring and a curiosity of who this person is, what it is that they care about, the ground that they stand on, what's underneath their words and actions. Throughout the spiral blend, we've been centering ourselves to, in a sense, get out of our own way so we can fully listen to who it is we are with, to listen to the deeper needs that they stand on, what's underneath the words and actions. Here we await a sense or a feeling within us, allowing it to emerge, and when it rises to the surface, to check it, we make a guess. And she says, with the lightest of touch, verbally, energetically, physically, sounds like this is a really big deal for you, this trip, and you really want to make sure that you got your things together, right? His experience in that moment was a softening.
I felt like what you said was true for me. Like you were repeating something that I was. How did you feel? Feeling hurt.
So this is a critical moment in the process. To me, it's the essence of empathy. That moment was the connection. At that point in this process, just to give it a physical understanding, is when she actually put her hand on his back. So take it from there. Then you notice that she touches. She made a connection, and then she touches. You start with the lightest of touch, which is non-touch. Then you move to touch. And very slowly you start to have this conversation. So you want to understand him? Mm-hmm. This conversation goes back and forth. She's still in questioning, just to understand. Pure, unadulterated care and curiosity. Both people are relaxed. He feels heard. And then she starts to say something like, would you be willing to hear what goes on for me in those moments? Remember, the needs are never in conflict. Empathy, honesty, autonomy, mutuality, those are the qualities they want. They are not in conflict. The strategies for meeting those needs are what's in conflict. If we can cultivate this kind of thing with those in our lives, anybody we want to communicate with, it would change the world. Find people to practice this with intentionally. Your partners, associates, friends, practice groups. Explore, change the practices to suit your needs, but go through the movements. And of course, out in daily life, you're not going to step to the side and move behind people, but you can adjust it so they're just micro movements. Or with practice in time, you can just use your imagination to step off the line or behind somebody. Use these movements as a map. We can cultivate to practice this kind of thing, understand where you are in a given moment, anybody we want to communicate with. It would change the world.